As I look back on almost 6 years of climbing, it's difficult for me to remember a time when heading to the bouldering gym or heading outside to boulder on the weekends wasn't a mainstay of my routine. When I first started climbing, I was inexperienced and weak and clumsy on the wall, and I didn't really know what I was doing. But the sport quickly became my biggest passion and I took to it fiercely. There is a lot to be said for being a complete beginner and figuring out things for yourself and completely not knowing what you're doing, but figuring it out your own way. But there are a few things that I wish that I had known when I first started climbing that might have made those first few months and years a little easier. So, if you've just found bouldering or you're just starting out in bouldering and you would like some guidance or some tips in your new favourite sport, then that's what this video is going to be. Here are some things that I wish I had known when I started bouldering all those years ago. Tip 1, look after your fingers. So in a classic case as do as I say and not do as I do. Is that right? In a classic case of do as I say and not as I have always done. My biggest tip to someone starting out bouldering is to look after your fingers. Finger injuries really seem to be part of the course in bouldering, and I think you'd struggle to find a seasoned climber who hasn't had some sort of niggle or small tendon tear or rupture, which all sounds really scary, but fingers aren't really meant to take the strain that we put them under when we climb, but we can minimise the risk of injury by incorporating warm-ups and aftercare into our climbing routines. Having suffered my fair share of niggles and currently dealing with a finger injury, I feel reasonably qualified with experience to give you the advice that it's taken me 5 years to take, which is to look after your fingers and warm them up before you start climbing. When I get to the climbing gym, all I want to do is climb. I'm pretty impatient. I don't really like to do a warm-up, and Nathan always tells me that I should do. I hop straight on the wall, start trying stuff that my fingers aren't really ready to start doing, and that's why I'm currently injured. So make looking after your fingers a priority. So, tip number 2. Rest days are as important as training or climbing days. So, you've recently discovered bouldering, it's your new favourite thing, you want to do it all the time, you want to be in the climbing gym every day, you want to be climbing every second of the day, rest days feel like torture, and you're counting down the seconds until you can be in the gym again, climbing. Yeah? That feeling doesn't ever really leave, but learning how to make the most out of rest days can help to maintain your focus, avoid injury, and encourage progress ultimately. Your rest days are where all the hard work you put in your training sessions and your climbing sessions is consolidated, and that is the time that you are getting stronger. When you're climbing and you're training, you're not getting stronger. It's during the rest days that you are. I say this not as a scientist, not as a physiotherapist, but I think that's right. Rest days are just as important, if not more important, than training and climbing days. So learn how to rest and learn how to make the most out of rest. Refuel, have a break, give your fingers a break. We're looking after our fingers. Remember, give your body some time to adjust to this new crazy sport that you've just taken up, which is really physically demanding, and try not to do too much too soon. You will see the benefits, I promise. At least that's what we tell ourselves to make rest days more bearable. Number 4, technique in climbing is everything. Like every other movement in every other sport, climbing is best done when you do it efficiently and you use your body efficiently. So that's where technique comes in. If you want to climb harder and avoid injury as a beginner boulderer, then you really need to be thinking about nailing your technique. Practice your footwork and your body positioning, make use of training tools such as the circuit board, and don't rely too much on your biceps to try and pull you up the wall. So think straight arms pushing up through your legs and trying to keep your hips as close to the wall as you can. This will help you to conserve energy on the wall, you won't get tired as quickly, you'll be able to do more moves, and it also might give your shoes an extra couple of months of life. Not kicking holes in the toes of your shoes is aspirational for all. So this leads us nicely onto number 5. So number 5 is all about shoes. Invest in a good quality pair of beginner shoes. You don't need anything too fancy. So maybe you've just started climbing and you're using the rental shoes at your gym, which is great. It means that you don't have to invest in a pair just yet, and you can figure out whether or not you like bouldering, whether or not you want to put money into shoes and equipment. But if you really do love bouldering and you know that you are going to continue, then my advice would be to invest in a really good pair of shoes that fit you nicely and that you trust, and that's going to help you to really feel confident on the wall and start climbing harder. So the climbing shoe market can often feel overwhelming. There's a wealth of different options and styles and a whole catalogue of brand and model names to choose from. Each shoe will have specific advantages and disadvantages, but it's worth investing in a good, comfortable pair that fit you and that will help you to feel comfortable and confident on the wall. Most gyms have a shop on site, or there might be a climbing shop in your area, so I'd recommend asking a member of staff to talk you through the best options for you and get you sorted out with a nice pair of shoes that are going to become your own and very smelly. So number 6, climbing tape is your friend. If you look around the climbing gym, you'll perhaps notice that a lot of people have digits taped or like tape on their hands, and that can be used for a number of reasons. I currently use it to support my finger that is a little bit dodgy. It just helps to give it a little bit of support. Sometimes I'll buddy tape it to my healthy finger so that I'm not putting as much strain through it. I also use it when we're outside, say if my skin is bad or I start bleeding from a cut in my hands, then I'll use tape to kind of patch that up so that I'm not, you know, bleeding everywhere. It's probably not a fantastic idea to start relying on tape to kind of hold your hands together, but it can be very useful. So invest in some climbing tape. It's really cheap, inexpensive, and it can patch you up and help prevent finger injuries in some cases. So 7, it's probably one of my bigger pieces of advice, and that is to get your head around the fact that bouldering grades are completely subjective. There are a number of different grading systems and much debate as to how we measure climbing difficulty. It's easy to get pulled into the trap of trying to hit certain grades, trying to climb through the grades, trying to push your grade, but I think it's important to remember that grades are just the route setter's best estimate of how difficult he or she thinks that particular boulder problem or route is. While setters are really experienced in their estimates of these grades, they still are subjective. Two people who, for example, are completely different heights are gonna have a different experience on a boulder, and difficulty can't be measured objectively all the time. There's no one common trait shared by everyone, and everyone climbs slightly differently and has different body mechanics. So don't be discouraged if you can't get that V2 project in the gym, and you know that you should be able to. Just keep sticking with it, just keep practicing, enjoy it, and try not to take it too seriously. Which brings me on to my next point, which is have fun. So presumably you started climbing for the same reason I started climbing, and that is to do something fun with your spare time. As we get into the sport and we want to improve in bouldering, we can put a little bit of pressure on, and that can get a little bit frustrating, and we can start to kind of lose track of the reason we started climbing in the first place, which is just to have fun. It's meant to be fun, so let yourself enjoy being a beginner. The strength and the skill will come in time. Trust the process, take grades with a big pinch of salt, and be easy on yourself. Remember the reason that you started climbing in the first place. My last tip is don't be afraid to fail, and don't be scared to try boulders that are too hard or above your grade. I've heard it said consistently that failing on boulders that are too hard for you isn't a good use of training time or energy, and perhaps it isn't if you're really serious about efficiency and maximising your training. But remembering that we're climbing because we love it and it's fun, if you want to try boulders above your grade, my advice would be go for it. Whilst it might not be great for your ego or your confidence to fall off a boulder repeatedly and not be able to get something because it's a little bit too hard, failure is a huge part of climbing, and it always will be. So I say go for it. Climb the stuff that is too hard, and don't be scared to make a fool of yourself falling off, because you're not making a fool of yourself. No one's really paying much attention. Even if something is too hard or above your current ability, I think a little optimism and confidence will get you closer to climbing it than not trying it at all. As with all things, experience takes time and dedication. With the right approach and these handy tips in your back pocket, hopefully you can avoid some of the more common mistakes made by new climbers and enjoy your newfound love for bouldering all the more. So those are my 10 tips for the beginner boulderer. Obviously I'm not an expert, I'm not the best boulderer in the world, but I've been doing it for a little while and I've picked up those things along the way. It's also worth saying that I could probably make a whole series or at least a few more videos on tips for bouldering beginners or starting out in the sport, like bouldering in general, bouldering outside. So if there's anything specifically that you would like to see, or if you'd like to see some more tips, then let me know. If you liked this video, then please give it a like wherever it is that you give it a like. Consider subscribing if you want more kind of bouldering and fitness and outdoorsy content from me. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.